Oke, jadi kita masuk ke sesi materi ini yang nanti akan disampaikan oleh Bapak Dr. Khairul Azhar. Tadi sudah disampaikan sedikit sama Pak Susilo ya terkait sama CV-nya. Ya, terima kasih Pak Sus. Harusnya moderator itu yang menyampaikan, tapi tadi sudah disampaikan sedikit sama Pak Sus. Ya,
Mohon maaf, memotong sebentar. Saya
iya,
izin
iya,
untuk membuka acara di sebelah.
Iya,
Dokter
terima
iya,
kasih,
Khairul,
Bu.
Lisa.
maaf,
Terima kasih.
semoga lancar, sukses saja.
Alright.
Iya, Bu.
Terima kasih,
Terima
Ibu.
kasih, Bu Lisa.
Terima kasih, Bu
Ya,
Lisa.
eh, ya. Ya. Oke, tak kenal maka tak sayang. Tadi sudah disampaikan sama Pak Susilo di sini, ya. Jadi pemateri kita pada pagi hari ini adalah Bapak Dr. Muhammad Khairul Azhar bin Mat Sulaiman di sini. Beliau adalah banyak ini ya, apa namanya profesinya. Beliau pensyarah, terus peneliti juga ya. Dia pengajar, terus juga mungkin ada beberapa kegiatan lain yang beliau lakukan. Praktisi juga di sini ya. Ah, beliau menjabat sebagai pengajar bidang seni bina dan alam bina di Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia di sini ya. Jadi sudah sempat disampaikan sama Pak Susilo bidang atau kalian beliau di bidang arsitektur ya. Beliau memang spesifiknya lebih ke building thermal gitu ya, building thermal, terus comfort thermal, thermal comfort, terus di situ building energy, desain pasif dan juga ada beberapa bidang lain terkait sama building science. Beliau banyak meneliti di bidang itu. Namun beliau juga meneliti di bidang environment, terus landscape juga di situ ya. Karena di beberapa risetnya beliau juga membahas tentang sosial, terus tentang behavior itu ada banyak hal di situ. Kalau yang tadi sempat apa disinggung Pak Susilo terkait sama merasakan untuk mendesain, beliau juga banyak berkutat di bidang apa namanya behavior, terus space and society, sehingga ada banyak apa namanya pendekatan desainnya bukan hanya pada fisik buildingnya, bukan hanya pada cover atau eh, building atau bangunan itu sendiri, tapi juga berkutat sama manusianya juga. Ya, jadi sangat tepat untuk materi pada pagi hari ini, ya, terutama untuk dua materi pada hari ini. Yang pertama itu terkait sama kulit manusia, kulit bangunan, pengalaman indrawi, material, dan selubung pada bangunan tropis di sini. Terus yang kedua membaca panas dengan tubuh, fenomenologi termal, dan keputusan untuk desain pasif. Jadi beliau memang sangat tepat untuk memberikan materi pada hari ini karena banyak riset beliau yang berkutat di bidang tersebut. Ya, oke, tanpa panjang lebar, mungkin Bapak Dr. Khairul Azhar bisa menyampaikan materi yang pertama. Nanti akan kita lanjut dengan diskusi bersama dengan teman-teman di sini. Ya, monggo, Pak.
Oke, Alhamdulillah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan selamat pagi. Terutama kepada Pak Susilo dan juga moderator kita, Pak Rijal, juga ibu-ibu dosen dan juga bapa-bapa dosen yang ada bersama kita pagi ini. Alhamdulillah. Dan terutama sekali kepada anak-anak, adik-adik ya. Di sini, di sana panggil adik-adik. Adik-adik anak-anak mahasiswa yang mengikuti desain architecture ya 6 khusus ini. Pertama kali saya ingin ucapkan saya mohon maaf ya kerana saya telah cancelkan dan juga mengganggu liburan masing-masing hari hari liburan ya hari ini. Mohon maaf tapi alhamdulillah finally we managed to do our apa itu lecture kita bersama hari ini ya. Dua lecture sekali. But apa ni? Tapi sepanjang lecture yang saya akan sampaikan, insyaAllah saya akan mungkin mostly saya akan conduct in English, but definitely saya allow for saya benar apa saya akan cuba campur-campur. Tapi kalau campur-campur tu mostly dalam bahasa Malaysia lah. Indonesia mungkin sikit-sikit. Alright, but insyaAllah saya boleh mengerti sekiranya ditanya dalam bahasa Indonesia. Kalau saya tidak mengerti, saya boleh tanya juga ya. Alright, okay. Bila tadi dengar description ataupun penjelasan atau very detailed explanation by Dr. Susilo, yeah, I can say this is going to be my first time where did I conduct a lecture on my my expertise, yeah, but not on the objective way, meaning that this is more on the qualitative part. We're talking about more on the way about rasa, yeah, about emotion and so on. So it's going to be very interesting for me also. But I hope that whatever that I prepare today is going to be delivered as what we promised lah, insyaAllah. But if I might have a little apa tu kekurangan, I'm very sorry for everything. But hopefully we can understand and we can discuss together for everything. Alright. So untuk ini saya mau share screen-nya dulu ya. Sudah kelihatan? Sudah ya?
Sudah, Pak.
Alright, okay.
Sudah.
Okay, Alhamdulillah. Alright, so today, as I said, again, first of all, I think I would like to say thank you for inviting me. Yeah, so it is a really pleasure to be here with you all. Yeah, but today I want to share a slightly different way of thinking about architecture, as even myself also is gonna not to be as usual that I practice or probably giving a lecture, but not the thing that probably I think what I mentioned about different of thinking about architecture is not from form. Ini pun dijelaskan oleh Pak Susilo tadi. Yeah. We're not talking about form, not talking about aesthetic, but we are talking about experience. So specifically how material play a role, not just for as construction, but there's something that shapes how we feel space, especially in tropical climates. Okay, so this lecture is really about shifting perspective. Okay, so the title, I hope the title is almost similar to the given. Yeah, so material as the body of architecture from from climate to experience. Okay, so let me begin with a simple question. Have you ever been in two spaces where the temperature is almost the same, yeah? But one feel very hot and the other feels comfortable? Maybe one space feels stuffy, yeah, but another one feel breezy. So one feel harsh, another feel calm. So the difference is not just about the numbers like temperature or humidity, but this difference also is not only technical, but it is architectural. And it is about how architecture shape experience. And this is where our discussion begins. So in architecture, as already mentioned by Dr. Susilo just now, very elaborative. Bila saya dengar pun saya rasa alamat takutnya I cannot achieve to the level of thinking of Dr. Susilo. But it's going to be a very interesting actually. So in architecture, this related to field called phenomenology. Yeah. So architects like Peter Zamto and Juhani Palasma and even Stephen Hall has been talking about this for many years. And this idea is simple. Architecture is not only something we see, it is something we experience with our entire body. We feel it through movement, through temperature, through sound, and through light. And so instead of asking, what does the building look like? We begin to ask, what does the space feel like? Okay. Zamto used the word atmosphere to describe this. Atmosphere is not something we can draw easily, and it is not just a plan or a section or even elevation. Yeah, it is overall feeling of being in a space. So, for example, some spaces feel calm, yeah, and some feel very heavy, and some feel sacred. or probably spiritual. Yeah? But often, yeah, we remember this feeling more than the physical form itself. So that's why atmosphere is most powerful in architecture. Yeah. So basically, what the Zamto mentioned about the atmosphere, we we actually design how does the space can give the emotion, create the ambience, and so on. So the sensation that we feel, that actually the thing that we most remember rather than the form or probably the aesthetic part. Okay. And this about multisensory. When we enter a space, we don't only use our eyes. We hear footsteps, we feel air movement, and we sense temperature. Sometimes we even notice smell. So architecture is actually multisensory. And this is important because material is what activates these senses. So without material, there is no sensory experience. So now we come to materials. Okay? I want to talk of material not as a surface, but as interface. It sits between the outside environment and the human body. Climates like heat, light, and air does not reach us directly. It always passes through material first. So material become a filter or even a translator. So material controls several things at the same time. It controls how much heat enter, how lights diffuse and reflected, and how much air move, and even how sound behaves. So, so when we choose a material, we are not just making a construction decision. We are shaping environmental experience. So from this photo that you can see how actually the design give you several experience or probably the sensation that we are talking about, how this material, choice of material can create environment such as calmness, sacred, spiritual, or maybe a light and even heavy. Yeah. So all these uh, phenomena, or probably that we call as the emotion that we are creating here, this is the you as a student should derive or should have the answer, and probably that what we try to achieve in this semester. Okay. So different material produce different sensation. For example, stone often feel cool, solid, and quiet. Wood feel warmer, softer, and more intense. Even concrete can feel either harsh or calm, depending on how it is used. So material has what we call character. Yeah? So as this character directly affect how we feel in a space. So again, the decision on what we decided on material selection, it is totally give the outcome on what sensory that will evolve in your design and the phenomenology that you would like to create it. All right. So different material create different sensation. Phil, this is what I share with you just to give you some ideas that material can create the sensory experience where you can see through visual. Yeah. So visual, normally we always relate to aesthetic, but not only that, but visual also what you see in terms of light reflection, yeah, texture, colors, yeah, textile, yeah, textile meaning that what you touch, what you feel from with your hand, with your skin. So roughly, roughness, softness, and acoustic sound where we can create echo, absorption, and thermal. This is how we feel, yeah, to our bodies, warm, cool, and olfactory, which is a smell of wood, stone, earth, floral, and so on. Okay, so this is actually what Zanto referred to as the temperature and sound of space. Okay, now in the context of tropical, and to be specific to the Malang, Indonesia climates, the idea become even more important because in tropical, you can see in this slide that we do have a slightly we do always I would say but compared to KL, I think Malang have a slightly lower, even I can say mild temperature, yeah, very nice temperature that we can see throughout a year. But we do have a almost similar character, which is like humidity, where we had a very high humidity, and also we do have a very low in terms uh, uh, wind speed. Yeah, so this is the character of our climate, where we need to understand and we need to use this or probably manipulate this, how we can include in our design. And this is decision that not only will affect the will affect your decision in terms of your building, but also to the end user, which is your user of your building, how they feel about your architecture. All right. So as I said to you, we are also dealing with a strong radiation. Yeah, strong radiation. Therefore, this is the thing that we need to cater. This is the thing that we need to understand how we can reduce, yeah, the impact from the heat transfer to inside. So if architecture does not respond properly, the space becomes uncomfortable very quickly. So material is not optional, it is critical. So material envelope, yeah, the building envelope is where everything comes together. Through layers, openings, and materials, we control how the environment, outside environment, enter to the indoor space or probably the interior space. Yeah? So airflow, light, and heat are all shapes here. So this is where architecture becomes something we can actually feel, right? Shading device are not very shading devices are very important, very important passive design strategy. So they do not simply block sunlight, yeah, but they filter it, and most importantly, they reduce heat from radiation, especially direct radiation, before enter the space. Yeah, so this is critical in tropical climate because most of the heats come from the direct solar exposure. So by filtering sunlight, we actually controlling how much heat reach this interior. So, but at the same time, shading device create pattern on of light and shadow. So these patterns are not static, yeah, and they can change throughout a day. And this creates a dynamic spatial environment or atmosphere. Okay. In some cases, shading device can also be kinetic. They can move with wind or mechanical system. And this movement can produce subtle sounds. So shading is not only for visual or thermal, but it's also become an auditory experience. So shading is not only a technical solution, yeah, but it's a spatial filter where shaping heat, light, and even sound into experience. So if you can see this is an example, I mean, just to show you a few photos where the type of shading device that we use, that is just not to control solar radiation, but at the same time, we would like to create a sensation through the shadows and the light that come through to the space. This can be a bit in the first photo. It can be a bit for the aesthetic purposes, but it's actually good for which create the experience, yeah, with this kind of shading device. You can have this kind of treatment in through the shadow. But definitely, this is try to reduce or filter the very high radiation from enter to the space, and also it to provide or reduce the glaring from the direct day lighting. So it is a two situation where this device actually can help in two situation, which is for the purpose of radiation and also for the heat or thermal comfort. Yeah, and the other one is to help in term or to provide the better quality for the daylighting, which is for the light itself lah. Yeah, and also if you can see in the middle photos here, we can see this is a bit for the kinetic, or probably that it's actually the shading device itself can be moved either by wind or either by the mechanical equipment, right? But when we do this with the kinetic, sometimes it also produces sounds, and that sound also can create another experience where I mentioned about for the sound, yeah. Even though probably it can be a very subtle, yeah, it can be very like a chime sound, but it's also create another experience to the end user. Okay, so in vertical greenery system, or the other can mention about, or probably you guys have come across the word as green facade, living wall, green walls, or even there is a lot of a name for this kind of system, yeah? But we're talking about the vertical greenery system where we actually have a vertical landscaping that covers our facade. Yeah, so different system is actually have a different way ataupun produce in term of thermal environment and so on. All right, so let's look at green facade. Often people see this is as a purely aesthetic, something added to make a building looks more green or visually appealing. But in reality, green facade perform multiple roles. They provide shading, they reduce surface temperature, and they soften the intensity of light entering the building. So in this sense, plan act almost like a living layer of material, filtering environmental condition before they reach the wall. The, they cool the building passively even before heat is absorbed into the structure. So again, we are not blocking climate, we are transforming it. So beyond thermal performance, green facade also contribute to sensory experience. The selection of plants becomes important. Fragrant species such as herb or flowering plants can introduce subtle scents into the space. So the facade is no longer just seen, it is also experienced through smell. So in this way, a green facade is not just a visual features, is also becoming a multisensory environmental filter, shaping temperature, light, and even atmosphere. So we can say this: in tropical architecture, material has a dual role. It controls environmental performance, and at the same time, it creates sensory experience. And good design happens when these two are integrated. Material is not passive. Material actively produce spatial environment or experience. Let's talk about Zamto. Yeah. If you look at the work of Peter Zamto, especially thermal valves, we can see this idea very clearly. Stone creates a sense of coolness, water introduces sounds and movement, and light is carefully controlled. And the result is not just a building, but an atmosphere that you can feel with your body. But in our context, we don't copy Zamto directly. Instead, we translate the principle. For example, instead of thick stone, we might use shading layer for ventilated facade. Instead of enclosed calm space, we might design for airflow and openness. And the idea remain the same, the experience of the body. All right. So we in the tropical probably we have the same principle. We translate his principle. Instead of using the stone coolness, we're using a shaded surface, and then instead of filtering light, maybe we actually control through our screen facade. And we for the silent, we might use a soft material for our principle, or probably the what we want to create the atmosphere. So from everything we have discussed, material, shading, airflow, and climate, we begin to see the bigger idea. Material is not just what we see, it is what we feel. It shapes light, temperature, and even sound before it reaches the body. And this is where a shift begins. Architecture is not only about composing form or object, but it is about shaping how these environmental conditions are experienced in space. Now, let's look at your work. Dr. Susilo have shared one of the student work, so I try to understand exactly, try to understand how the studio been run. So therefore, what from the work that I see or I saw, so I try to understand how can we interpret your experience to design. Okay, so what you have done here is already very important. You have identified experience. You observe heat, noise, exposure, and airflow. And from that, we begin to understand the problem in space. This is where architecture begins. Not as a form, not at form, but at awareness. Okay? So this observation is not just analysis, they are the foundation of design thinking. Okay, so you from your experience, you mentioned about sunny, hot temperature, noisy, too exposed, too enclosed, and so on. So I also identify the problem because due to the no shading, no buffer, no boundary, and poor airflow. So this make to the design action, or probably the design strategy that you can do in order to create the experience that you want to have in your in specific space. right? So you can add the canopy or filter layers. You can create a acoustic wall, create a semi-enclosure, or introduce ventilation. So at the end, yeah, for the final reflection, material is not only what we see, it is what we feel. So architecture begins when climax, material, and the human body come together. And what you feel should guide you what you design. So thank you very much. I think that is about for our first presentation. Pak Rijal, thank
Oke,
you.
thank you so much, Dr. Khairul Azhar. Yap, menarik sekali ya, very interesting materi yang disampaikan oleh Pak Khairul ini. Eh, kita langsung masuk ke sesi diskusi mungkin ya, ya
Ya,
bisa?
okay.
Oke, masuk ke sesi diskusi. Jadi memang tadi sekedar saya review sedikit ya, memang ada beberapa materi yang memang sangat berkaitan sama mungkin lebih ke persepsi yang ditangkap ya. Persepsinya bisa visual, bisa apa namanya pengalaman termal kan itu ya. Jadi pemilihan untuk material sangat penting untuk meng-create satu ruang yang nyaman yang bisa kita hadirkan dari perencanaan ini ya. Eh, Mungkin teman-teman yang ada pertanyaan bisa langsung ke kolom chat atau langsung raise hand di sini ya. Sambil menunggu itu, saya boleh sedikit bertanya, Pak? Iya, oke.
Ya, sila
Eh,
sila.
Oke, kalau according to your personal opinion itu, menurut Anda itu material preferences untuk desain itu which one is more important? Apakah untuk creating thermal comfort, which
Hmm.
mean it's a physically directed impact with us, or visual perception, how we kita memilih atau material optionsnya itu untuk creating visual option like texture, color, or maybe uh, decorations, which mean visual perception itu bisa membuat persepsi kita atau menghadirkan persepsi kita terhadap kenyamanan ruang juga. But it means tapi ini yang lebih psychologically. Ya, menurut Pak Khairul itu which one is more prevalent, yang lebih utama, Pak?
Okay. I think when we are in the setting of tropical setting,
Hmm.
definitely we do have as I mentioned, the characteristic from our climate, which we have a very high solar radiation.
Hmm.
We have a weak in terms of wind movement, yeah, or air speed, yeah. Well, at the same time, we do have a very high humidity. So all these things is actually really give the impression or probably create the situation in terms of experience on to that particular space. So when we mention, we're not just about talking about to on the visual part, but we also want to create how the phenomenal logy is actually impact to our body in other in another dimension, right?
Hmm.
So yes, of course, one of it, I will say that the wall itself, yeah, ataupun enclosure that we are creating is the most important. Now I'm talking about how we sitting in one space, not looking through from outside, not on the exterior part, but as experience as in the space itself, right? So I think the wall itself is very important. As I mentioned, the selection of materials really determine how the experience created. So one of it, if I can say, when we talk about material or the element of the design, I think the world itself need to be highly considered. The reason because this is one where heat is transferred, all right. But at the same time, it's also how we get the light, where it will also impact on the visual. But at the same time, because the emotion that we want to create is apa tu yang menarik ya. So kalau kita dalam konteks tropical ini, I believe we need due to the low wind and so on and high humidity. So I believe we need to have uh, that involve apa tu with a screen ataupun kalau kita kata ventilated wall. Yeah.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
that is a very good design decision because when you have a ventilated wall or permeable wall, ya, di situ kita akan dapat allow some air movement. Definitely, that is what we need to make sure the humidity can be washed out, and that also at the same time where we can have a light for daylighting, yeah, and also at the same time you can feel the space is much not as a stuffy ataupun kita tak terasa too enclosed, yeah.
Mhm.
But also, I believe the opening also play a very important role. Yeah,
Mhm.
opening. Yeah, the size of opening. How you want to design this one? You can have a double, probably a double wall and so on. So this opening actually also can allow for daylighting, but this is where the decision that need to be creatively or intelligently to be designed, which is the shading device that how you design. The simple of overhang, yeah, simple of overhang, or probably eight crate shading device. This is already give a better impact towards the indoor environment. So when I mention here, the thing that I important for you, I think for this exercise is actually to create the experience, the atmosphere, the ambience in the space. So this decision, that's why I said one of it is a wall element is a need to be highly catered. And maybe also the volume of the space also have to be considered because sometimes with the double volume or how you going to design it, maybe space within the space and so on, that also can create another different dimension in terms of space sensation. All right, sorry. I think
Oke,
I answered
iya.
the question.
Okay, yep, yeah, okay. Honestly, I totally agree with you, ya,
Mm,
especially in the tropical area ya. Di daerah
mm,
tropis itu memang thermal comfort itu more important, ya. Some
mm.
several research or article state that also, ya, karena kalau misalkan kita berada dalam satu ruangan yang mungkin secara thermal itu comfort, kita bisa betah itu lama di situ, ya. Tapi kalau mungkin only visual, but kita nggak nyaman di dalam ruang itu, comfortnya, tapi
Yeah,
visual bagus, maybe at first sight itu kita excited, but not for long, tidak untuk berlama-lama di dalam itu, ya.
yeah,
Oke,
benar.
oke, itu saya setuju sekali ya. Oke, eh, teman-teman ada yang mau ditanyakan di sini? Ya, ini karena seperti yang sempat disampaikan oleh Pak Susilo, ya, itu proses mendesain yang sudah dilakukan oleh teman-teman itu mereka explore. Jadi they try to experience themselves through ini apa suhu juga. Mereka
Yeah,
merasakan panas di site itu ya. Mereka
yeah, yeah,
merasakan tekstur. They feel how to feel. They touch the material directly gitu ya. Jadi uh, mereka harus bisa menggambarkan itu. They have to
yeah, yeah.
describe by themselves, and then they try to create it into their design. Oke, teman-teman ada yang ditanyakan di sini? Mumpung kita banyak diskusi, ya. Karena nanti kalau kalian sudah masuk ke pengembangan desain ini kan masih proses penyusunan konsep, ya. Gak tahu kalau di kelasnya Bu Aziz kayaknya udah jauh lebih leading gitu ya. Di kelas saya kayaknya masih menyusun konsep desain. Jadi ini bisa kita tanyakan di sini eh, bagaimana pemilihan material yang sesuai itu bagaimana ya. Kalau misalkan kalian mau meng-create ruang yang dalam konsep desain kalian atau ruang atau visual yang kalian inginkan itu bagaimana, itu kira-kira pemilihan materialnya apa yang cocok. Ya, jadi manfaatkan sesi ini untuk apa namanya memperkaya desain kalian. Ya, oke, ada yang ditanyakan di sini? Ya,
Eh,
oh ya, nah, oke
izin
oke,
bertanya.
oke oke, yap, Mas, apa namanya? Nata. Ya,
Saya
silakan Nata. Ya.
izin memperkenalkan diri, saya Nanta dari kelas A. Before that, I'd like to ask a question about the secondary facade, maybe around something more like implementation into the design. Mostly I thought of like these kind of, how do I say this? Building atmosphere through secondary facades mostly applies to spaces that counts as circulation, maybe an alleyway that could build like the momentum and stuff. How about something more like a functional room? Maybe an entrance into a cinema, or maybe a functional one. Maybe I want to build atmosphere in uh, a paddle um, studio and all that. Is there any way that I could implement maybe either sound, light, or something in a more architectural translation? Maybe like implementing local materials that could be like specifically mentioned. Is there any inspiration I could grasp? I think that's my question. Thank you, Miss.
Oh, all right. Okay, Nata, ya? Nata, right?
Nanta.
Nanta, all right.
Nanta. Ya.
Sorry. Okay, adik Nanta. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. I try to understand the question. Basically, what you mentioned is about double skin, right? Where you have one skin outside and the other skin, and that's why you produce like a alley or upper corridor or something like that. That is what you see, or mostly this kind of approach being implemented, right? So now your question is actually how we can create such that kind of ideas to the bigger function space where it's actually more have a specific function, right? Okay, as such as what you're saying about a studio and so on. All right. So definitely, of course, when you are creating certain spaces, you have to go back to what exactly the function of the space, right? And in order to have that, we also have to make sure that of the function of that space must work first, right? Work, in order, let's say, for the example that you want to create a studio, yeah, studio. I believe the studio is for the purpose of recording and so on and so forth, right? So therefore, from there, you have to see that the function of that space is thick, yeah. So you know the function, but as what you are creating studio, I believe studio itself already create another sensation of the space, which is the space that you are providing. It is the absorption, where you need the absorption and so on. The wall itself, yeah, I believe the wall itself is already have a textile, yeah, because of the acoustic purposes, right? So they need to have a design in order to make sure that you can provide a better role or the function of the studio itself with the acoustic panel and so on. Yeah? So that is also create a sense of textile where actually create the emotion or create the phenomenological in term of touch and so on. Yeah. Uh, but to have that, actually, when you talk about how you also can implement this kind of idea to, I think it's just go back to what exactly your your experience on that particular space, or probably the space that you want to design. What kind of experience that you want to create? So from there, based on the experience that you want to create, and the function that you have that space function, and then you start to try to make a decision, yeah, like my previous slide, you make the decision on, let's say, how to create the wall. Okay, so how to create the wall that actually not only give a good acoustic, but also at the same time give a thermal comfort to the end user, and at the same time, perhaps maybe also can create a very good visual impact. Yeah. So as you know that we cannot avoid from the visual, but we don't say just a visual, but we want to create more on the phenomenological. So that's why I think the most important the decision on how you want to select the material is always come with what the experience that you want to create. So I think it's always want to have to be first decision that when you want to start to make a design, and of course without sacrifice the main purpose of that function or that space. Yeah. Then from there, I think then you make a bit better decision in terms of, okay, can I use this what do you call that, ventilated wall for the purpose of studio? I might say maybe it not really work probably, but because why? Because you need the function of the space for the recording and so on. Yeah. But you can use on this kind of design, kind of application on the other space where they have a different function. Maybe if you use that is for the lobby, or you use that for the any space, probably even for waiting area and so on. I think that it is well worth to try. Yeah. All right. Okay. Nata, I hope I can Nanta. I hope I answer your question.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Khairul.
Mhm.
Maybe if I summarize the
Mhm.
answer, it's mostly looking back to what kind of atmosphere would I want to like the
Exactly.
user to perceive. And
Yeah.
mostly it's really according to the function of the building and
Yeah.
the room itself. And
Yes.
maybe
Yes.
trying to implement some reference because for right now as an undergrad student, I mostly are kind of having a hard time uh, understanding how the actual atmosphere would look like because it's not actually a built thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's only like designing from computer.
Yeah.
I think that what makes it a barrier from actually understanding the whole atmosphere. But thank
Yeah.
you, Dr. Khairul. It's
Oh,
very helpful.
welcome, welcome. But the good thing is about, if I can add just a little bit, good thing about architecture in Indonesia, I think you have a abundant reference, a good reference from the Indonesia architects have produced. Definitely talking about how to create uh, experience or atmosphere. So, but I do respect and I do adore the way thinking of architect from Indonesia. So I believe you have abundant reference for you to make a reference, and also for your what do you call this, for your precedent study. So that is going to be a very good. Then I think you can have a good decision letter for your design. So always remember what the kind of emotion experience that you want to be experienced by your end user, and then have to suit to the purpose of the spaces. All right. Okay. Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you, Dr. Khairul.
Oke, gimana Nanta? Oke, saya rasa sangat jelas ya, clear enough ya. Jadi memang eh, tentukan dulu tujuannya seperti apa ya. Referensinya sudah cukup banyak ya. Kalau misalkan mencari itu kan banyak sekali alternatif gitu ya. Dan ya, maybe not just Indonesia, Malaysia also have abundance alternatif. Pak Khairul. Oke, ada lagi yang lain? Tanya? Ya.